This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining Gym, the strongest gym in the West. We're inside of Slingshot World Headquarters, and what I wanted to share with you guys today is I wanted to talk about educating your taste buds. This is something that was transformative to me years ago when I stopped having gas station taste buds and started to enjoy the flavors of food and enjoy the flavors of whole foods that didn't have a lot of extra ingredients, enjoying foods that maybe have 3 to 5 ingredients, one of them being salt, maybe salt, pepper, maybe lemon, things like that. Re-educating your palate and flipping your taste buds inside out can forever change your dieting, because I think that when someone's thinking about, man, I got to go on a diet, they're thinking that they have to eat a bunch of foods that they don't want to eat. That diet will fail every single time. It will be very, very difficult, and the willpower and things like that, you'll yo-yo diet at best. You'll lose 10, you'll gain 15. You'll lose 10, you'll gain 20. You'll go back and forth. You may have some success. I don't want to, count everybody out. Some people have great willpower and can force themselves to do things they don't want to do. But in general, that's not very healthy for a lot of reasons. So the healthiest thing to do, the best way to do this is how do we retrain our taste buds? Number one is to try to do everything in small increments. That's the way we do everything here. That's the way I always try to teach. That's the way I always try to preach. Remember, I view this YouTube channel as a mentorship program. And you know what I love about this YouTube channel is I love that the amount of views isn't crazy. I love that it's shared amongst a bunch of people that really truly get it, and I appreciate every single one of you. But if you look at the views at a lot of this stuff, I did a video recently about believing in yourself, and it's got like 2,000 views. You would think in these times when people need nothing more than to believe in themselves, you would think that something like that would explode. But I'm actually thankful that it's this niche group of just us communicating about these things. You're going to be able to win by getting the small advantages over time. That's how we get ahead. That's how we one day look back at our lives and say, I remember that time. I remember that time I lived in that apartment. I remember that time that I didn't have enough money to even get to the store, because I didn't have enough money for gas to go buy bread and peanut butter. I remember that shitty apartment where a mushroom grew in my, not intentionally, where a mushroom grew between my kitchen and my living room. That's a true story. There's these things that you can look back at and you can say, I used to be behind. I used to have really bad credit. The credit that I had couldn't have been worse. I've had a car repossessed. You name it. It wasn't like I was broke. It wasn't like I was ever homeless. Thankfully, I have parents that were able to assist me through some of those times, but I was a wreck, and it took me a really long time to be able to get ahead. But let me get back to this changing your palate thing and re-educating your palate. You're currently used to Snickers bars. You're currently used to 7-Eleven type foods. I call it a gas station taste bud. You got gas station taste buds. People that I've run into that have these kinds of taste buds are very rarely fit. Very rarely are they in good shape. Every once in a while I run into like a sugar burner, somebody that has been burning sugar up their whole life, and they've always been really active and they've always been ahead. They've moved so much that what they ate mattered a little bit less. But in general, when I run into people and they're like, man, I don't really like chicken, I don't really like fish, it's like, holy crap, they don't really like protein. So they're going to have a tough go of it. They don't really even enjoy protein, or they've never really tasted arugula or spinach or kale or any of these vegetables, green beans, asparagus. They never tasted those things without a bunch of stuff on them, without a bunch of oil on them, without a bunch of butter. And I realize oil, butter, all these things, they do taste fantastic, but you would want to utilize those things, if you're going to use them at all, in moderation. Also, too, what's wrong with putting a little bit of lemon or a little bit of salt on some asparagus and serving it up with some salmon or something like that? If you can learn to grow to like some of these foods, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And then when you go through your diet, you're not like, oh man, last thing I want to eat is another piece of chicken. How many of you have food sitting in your fridge that people around the world would die to have, that you just throw out because it goes bad? You got pork, you got chicken, you got this, you got that, just sitting in there. maybe like an old thing of plain yogurt because you were trying to convince yourself that plain yogurt's a good idea. And we all know plain yogurt's disgusting, right? I mean, it just is. I have learned to think that plain yogurt is less disgusting than I used to. I don't necessarily like it. I would rather have yogurt with a bunch of honey in it, but I don't typically eat a lot of sugar, so I choose not to do that. I choose not to go that route. In this whole process, you have to understand it's going to take a lot of time. So what I would suggest is that one meal per day, you try to have a meal that is really pulling back on the ingredients. And maybe, if you're strong enough, maybe you can do this with each meal. You know, your meal should have previously like had a face. Your proteins, right? You've probably heard some of these things before. It should be something that you could hunt or fish. I do realize there's people that don't like to eat meat, and that's totally fine, and I'll get to that in a second. But there should be things that you can hunt or fish, things that you can pluck, things that you could forage, right? These are all things, we already know about this. We want a whole foods diet, right? We want to have eating some grains and things like that, totally fine. But I think what happens is we start to really mix a lot of flavors together. Let's just take, for example, chicken, right? Why is chicken considered to be healthy? I mean, we can go through factory farming and you can go down that road, and yes, the way that chickens are treated is disgusting and horrific, and I don't think anyone's a fan of that, right? That aside, a chicken breast is fairly healthy because it has a lot of protein in it. Protein is the most satiating, and it's going to prevent you from eating a lot of other food because it's going to fill you up enough. When we get enough protein, all living things are in search of protein. Doesn't matter the type of diet that you have, all living things are in search of protein. When you reach that protein amount, not just on one day, but on multiple days, you start to string that together, you are less hungry for things that you're most likely going to overeat. So when you eat chicken, and you eat steak, and you eat eggs, and you eat fish, and you do this over, cheese, you have some dairy, you do this over and over and over, and maybe you're a vegan, vegetarian, and you have hemp protein, and whatever combinations, I don't even know, because I've never followed that style of diet. But you guys, you fill in the blanks with the style of protein that you like. When you start to reach that protein requirement each day, it will drive down hunger, it will drive down cravings, and you'll care a lot less about those other foods. When you go to a restaurant, let's say you go to a 5-star Michelin restaurant. I think it goes up to 5 stars. Maybe it only goes to 4. I don't know. When you go to a fancy schmancy restaurant, what's the number one thing on, what's the most expensive thing that you can find on the menu? They're not serving up Twinkies there. They're not giving you Doritos. They're not giving you a bowl of cereal. They're not serving up Cocoa Puffs at this place. They're giving you a steak, right? They're giving you a prime rib. They're giving you a fillet. They're giving you, some thing that was, raised in Australia or whatever, right? And it's super expensive, or some sort of fancy fish or sushi or some of these things. These are the things that we place at a high value, okay? A lot of the junk food that's out there, those things are fairly inexpensive. They're cheap. They're easy to eat. They're very convenient, and it's easy to overconsume them. And I think right now it's something like, it's in the 40s, like 40-something% of America is not only overweight, but obese. It's really has gotten out of hand. I think it's 60% of adults are overweight, and the weight thing I know can be weird because I would be considered overweight. I'd be considered obese, and there's definitely some like things that are messed up about even that kind of tracking. But you see who's around, you see what's going on, right? But the most expensive things at a restaurant are going to be the steak. It's going to be the salmon. It's going to be the lobster. It's going to be all these fancy things. One of the reasons why that is these are the most valuable things to us. They are very nutrient dense, and they can also taste fantastic. Things that are like cheap and inexpensive, like pastas and stuff you'd get from a Mexican restaurant. And a lot of these types of things they're quick and easy to eat, and they're very easy to overeat because they have such a wide variety of ingredients in there. Back to my chicken breast story. If we take some chicken breast, let's say I gave you 2 large chicken breasts. Let's say it's 1.5 pounds of chicken. That would be a little bit of a chore for you to get that down if that's all you had. Some chicken, and let's just throw some salt on there, okay? Well, now, let's say that I chop that up. And let's say that I throw some teriyaki sauce on there. Let's say I throw some rice in there and maybe a little bit of vegetables. Well, now we're having a damn party, right? That's going to be easy. That's going to be pretty easy to plow through that food. It's going to be pretty easy to overconsume that food. And even if we took out half of the amount of chicken and you were only left with like 3/4 of a pound, you would still be able to plow. I mean, you'd be able to plow through it easy, but you'd also be getting in less protein, which would satiate you less, which would make you eat more later. The other thing that happens is we have things that are hyper palatable. You keep hearing this conversation being brought up, and it's not even talked about enough, even though it is talked about quite a bit. It's extremely dangerous to have these hyper palatable foods. If you were to bring in a thing of Doritos into the fanciest restaurant in the world with the best steak or the best prepared meal, your favorite prepared meal, eat 20 of those Doritos and then tell me what your meal tastes like. It will taste like absolutely nothing. It would be like brushing your teeth and drinking orange juice. The orange juice is no longer the same. We got to figure out ways. How can we flip our palate inside out? How can we change these things? So my suggestion here is, let's start to really try to dump a lot of ingredients. Let's try to get rid of a lot of ingredients. And we don't have to do it 5 times a day or 6 times a day. You don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to be on point all the time. I just would love for you to try to do it 1 meal per day for about a week. And just see, like, how did it feel? How was it? Was it that bad? Choose things that you already kind of like. Like maybe you just eat a plain burger. Have a burger without cheese. Like, do you know what ground beef tastes like? Or do you only know what ground beef tastes like when it has cheese and bacon and when it's in a bun? You might not have even really had it that much that way. What are the things that you really like? I would love for you to give me a list. Give me a list of like 5 things that you really enjoy. Get a couple things that are protein on that list. Make sure it's not just all fruit. But give me a couple things that you enjoy that you're going to try to eat over the next couple of days that you're just going to eat by itself. An apple, a piece of steak. I mean, you can add 1 or 2 ingredients if you want. You want to add salt, you want to add pepper, you want to add some butter, you want to add a little bit of olive oil or something like that. That's totally fine. But once we start mixing 4, 5, 6 ingredients, we end up in the same spot that we've always been in before, and we run into trouble. And why are we trying to re-educate our palate? We're trying to re-educate our palate because we're trying not to eat so damn much. We need to figure out ways to peel back the amount of food. And you hear people arguing all the time. You got the vegans over here going crazy about plant-based diet's going to reverse this and that. You got the carnivores over here saying a meat-based diet's going to reverse this and that. And really the truth is, both sides are correct. The keto side is correct. If it fits your macros is correct. Anyone that is suggesting some better lifestyle choices, anyone that is suggesting the removal of sugar, the removal of vegetable oils, not complete removal, doesn't have to be out of your diet forever, but just way different than the standard American diet. Anyone that's suggesting that you lean towards whole foods, that you lean towards chicken and lean cuts of steak and all these different things that you hear people suggest, fruit, vegetables, getting a couple serving of vegetables every day. Why do people suggest a couple servings of vegetables every day? Does anyone ever even tell you why? It's not because vegetables are so vitamin and nutrient dense. It's not because vitamins have some crazy amount of micronutrients and stuff. They do have micronutrients. They have some fiber in them. They definitely have. There's a lot of things that are probably in fruits and vegetables that we haven't even discovered yet, that we probably don't even know. It's like the ocean, right? There's tons of shit in there that we don't even know about yet. It's like outer space too, right? Or drilling through the center of the earth. There's a lot of things that are undiscovered still, right? However, they don't suggest for you to eat a couple servings of vegetables a day for that specific reason. That might be part of the reason. But I think the main reason is to prevent you from eating other bullshit, from preventing you from eating too much food in general. Let's just take someone's dad that's watching this right now, or someone's uncle, who's been pretty set in their ways for a long time. They've been pretty stuck. And if you said, look, Uncle Jim, you know what? I am just sick and tired of your shit. I'm sick and tired of you telling me every Christmas you sit down and tell me how you're 40 pounds overweight and you can't take it anymore and you ride your bike every day and you don't know why you're still fat. Here's what you're going to do, and you tell them, hey, have 2 or 3 servings of vegetables every day, have about 2 servings of fruit every day, and have 3 good servings of protein every day. Now, he might have a lot of questions on what's a serving and so forth and all these different things, but if he even just followed that, he would make a lot of progress. because he would be satiated, he'd be full. He's getting fiber in from the greens, right? He's getting fiber in from the vegetables, getting some fiber and some sugar for some energy from the fruits, and then the three servings of protein a day. He's filling up his cup of his protein requirement every day. I think that you have these cups that need to be filled every day when it comes to your nutrition. You have your macronutrient cup, you have your micronutrient cup. I also think that you have another cup that's actually separate. The two macronutrients that your energy sources are fat and carbohydrates. I don't consider protein to be much of an energy source at all. I only think that it has about 1 calorie per gram as opposed to the 4 that it's given now. I don't think that's warranted. I don't think that makes any sense. I think that protein is probably closest related to fiber, where it doesn't really give you much energy. It just helps in the building of muscle mass, and it just helps with maintaining your muscle mass and so forth. So my suggestion is make sure those cups are filled up each day. You need a certain amount of energy to come in, but if you're not moving that much, you don't need that much energy. You don't need to have 300 carbs every day if you are sedentary. You don't move around much. You might only need to have 200, and you don't need 200 grams of fat every day if you don't move around that much. You might only need 100. Start to think about some areas on where you can cut back, but the main thing here is really work towards changing your interpretation of how these foods are going to taste. I know that you probably hate shrimp. I know that you probably hate sushi. Try to expand your palate. Try to find stuff. You might think that you hate seafood, but maybe you never tried oysters. You might think oysters are disgusting, but maybe you never tried mussels, right? And as I say, try. I got this on, right? So don't try it, just do it. Get into it. Get involved. Take these different foods, give them a go, start to kind of retrain your palate. The last thing I'm going to finish with is I did mention the ingredient thing many times over, but for me personally, when I'm cooking up stuff, the main things that you're going to see is I might cook something in like a beef tallow, I might cook something in butter, I might cook something in some ghee, if it needs that. Like eggs, sometimes they need that so don't stick to the pan, right? I don't just lather big old things of butter on stuff. If I had a low amount of calories for the day, I might do that at dinner, but in general, I'm eating lean meats, Piedmontese beef. I talk about it all the time. I eat lean meats, and that includes chicken, that includes pork, that includes steak, salmon. I eat a wide range of fish. I eat clams and mussels and oysters and shrimp and all different kinds of things so that I can mix things up enough. Ground beef, ground bison, and then when it comes to carbohydrate sources, I don't have many. I got like 5 maybe. I'll have fruit here and there, and then from there I got rice, sweet potatoes, and there's really nothing else. And more recently, I haven't really cheated on the diet. I haven't done anything out of whack, and it's mainly because of this idea of retraining your palate. So take the time to retrain your palate. Take the time to remove some of those ingredients, and once something starts to have like 4, 5, 6 ingredients, just say, you know what, I'm going to work on getting away from that. Last thing, I forgot this one. This one's crucial. And this is going to be a kick to the balls. Water. Just drink water. Here's your options. Water, tea, or black coffee. Water, tea, black coffee. Try your best. Try not, do. Do your best to work on removing any sweeteners of any kind. Any sweeteners of any kind, just for a week. I just want you to try it please just try it for a week. I want you to taste what water tastes like. I want you to taste what tea tastes like. I want you to taste what just plain regular coffee tastes like, because it'll be a lot easier for you to reduce the amount of coffee that you drink, because you probably drink too much as it is, when you recognize that just straight up black coffee is different than regular coffee. You might still enjoy it. But also water will taste good if in the absence of a lot of other stuff. So the diet sodas and things like that, I don't think that they're making people fat, but I think that they're keeping that craving, the craving going. They're keeping that craving going around the clock for something sweet. Now that can work. You can reintroduce that once the week's over, but I just want you to kind of get a better feel of what these things are supposed to taste like. Last thing that you can throw in there, if you really got a sweet tooth like me, and I know this kind of goes against what I just said about the diet drinks, but you can throw in some whey protein or something like that, your favorite protein shake. go ahead and throw that in there, just because I think it's a better option than what you might otherwise do at night, which is probably indulge in some ice cream or some dessert or something like that. Hopefully you found this to be helpful. Work on re-educating that palate. It can change your life. It can change your diet forever. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later.